Herzlich willkommen zum zweiten Teil des Interviews mit Chris von Nova Minerals. Ihr musstet ein bisschen warten. Das lag daran, dass das Team von axinocapital in der letzten Woche auf Roadshow war mit Nigel Ferguson von AVZ Minerals. Der ein oder andere von euch hat es mitbekommen und den ein oder anderen haben wir sogar persönlich treffen können, was mich sehr gefreut hat. Im ersten Interview hat Chris mit ein paar Fragen aufgeräumt, die aus der Community gestellt wurden. Hierbei nochmal ganz kurz der Hinweis, dass ihr Fragen an die Firmen sehr gerne unten in die Kommentare schreiben könnt, denn nur so können wir sicherstellen, dass die Fragen auch wirklich weitergeleitet werden. Wenn ihr sie in irgendwelchen Boards versteckt, wird es für uns immer nur schwieriger, sie am Ende herauszufinden. Nachdem Chris dann aber aufgeräumt hatte, hat er angedeutet, dass Nova Minerals zum Ende des Jahres eine komplett andere Firma sein wird.
One of our largest drilling programs at Estelle ever. What will proceed here and what will eventuate this year with our planned drilling programs at RPM and these things, we can go into that in more detail, is that this will change. Nova will be a totally different company by the end of the year based on what we intend to achieve at Estelle.
Und dann habe ich ihn einfach mal gefragt, wie er das Ganze meint. Und kurzen Hinweis nochmal, Chris wird jetzt relativ viel darüber erzählen und am Ende versuche ich auf Deutsch das Ganze nochmal etwas zusammenzufassen, da uns viele Fragen erreicht haben, ob wir das Ganze nicht auf Deutsch übersetzen können. Deswegen gebt uns gerne Feedback, ob das so in Ordnung ist und ob ihr das Gefühl habt, jetzt besser zu verstehen, was der CEO sagt. Wenn ihr aber weitere Vorschläge oder Fragen habt, wie wir die Videos gestalten können, damit sie bei euch noch besser ankommen, dann gebt uns ebenfalls gerne Bescheid. Jetzt aber viel Spaß mit dem Interview mit Chris.
Last year at RPM, we had one of the best drill intercepts in the history of the world, actually, right? You know, some people have said that, and we'll take it. Our headline number there was 132 meters at 10.1 grams per ton within a larger intercept of 400 meters at 3.5 grams per ton. Now, obviously, we need to follow that up. That was the last hole. We just clipped that zone to the west. And so that was the last hole on that line. And so it's just wide open. That whole zone is wide open to the west. We need to follow that up. It's one of our highest priorities this year is to follow up RPM. So we intend to do two things there. Well, actually three things. With over 20,000, up to 20,000 meters, probably over 20,000 meters, if we can get 3 drilling rigs out there this year, which are on site. We just need to mobilize them to RPM. And so the first thing, we're going to go and infill drill around where we have the current maiden resource of 1.5 million ounces at 2 grams per ton. We're going to infill drill there and prove that portion of the resource up to indicated so that we can include it in our phase 2 scoping study. So we just came out with our phase 1 scoping study. And to inform your listeners, this was in the news releases, we were constrained with the phase 1 scoping study by only using indicated resources, which we only have at the Corbel main deposit. So we were constrained by that. You're not allowed to include anything outside of indicated resources according to ASX guidelines. And so our capital structure and the Corbel Central Processing Facility, that's the CapEx for the project to bring in Corbel, RPM, anything else, Shoeshine, any of these other prospects that we'll be advancing from years to come. So that's our plant for the life of the project, and for very minimal additional CapEx, mainly due to hauling and making roads and potentially slurry pipelines from RPM and some of these other prospects. We'll feed that all into our central Corbel processing facility. But for the production schedule in our phase 1 scoping study, we were only able to include the Corbel main indicated resources. So now we're doing a phase 2 scoping study, which will incorporate the indicated resources, which we'll be drilling and proving up at RPM. And before the end of the year, we'll come out with the phase 2 scoping study, which includes RPM. And, it's early days, but the numbers just internally, it's going to be off the charts. I mean, you can imagine when you're dealing with 1.5 million ounces at average grade of 2 grams per ton. And so that'll come out before the end of the year.
Also im ersten Abschnitt weist Chris darauf hin, dass im letzten Jahr Nova dem Abschnitt RPM mit extrem guten Durchbohrungen durchschnitten hat. Einige Leute sagen sogar die besten Durchbohrungen der Welt. Dem wird Nova weiter nachgehen wollen und in dieser Region weiter bohren. Mit ca. 20.000 Bohrmetern, vielleicht auch mehr, und 3 Bohrern. Dort, wo aktuell 1,5 Millionen Uns liegen, werden Infill-Drillings stattfinden, um dann noch in die zweite Phase der Scoping-Studie zu gehen. Die ASX, also die australische Börse, hat ganz klare Vorgaben, ab wann eine Ressource offiziell vermeldet werden darf. Und wie Chris schon sagt, muss die Ressource dafür den ASX-Standard Indicated erzielen. Diesen Standard erreicht aber bislang nur die Ressource aus dem Corbel-Main-Bereich. Hier hat Chris nochmal aufgeräumt, nämlich das Missverständnis, was viele Anleger mit der letzten Studie hatten, die auch einen großen Impact auf den Share-Price hatte. Diese beinhaltet nämlich fast alle Kosten für das Gesamt-Estelle-Projekt, aber eben nur die Ressource von Corbel-Main. Und da ist ja ganz klar, dass die Zahlen nicht rosig aussehen.
That's the first part, infill drilling to prove up that indicated the existing resource we have at RPM. Also, it's wide open to the west on that RPM north zone, and so we'll be stepping out to increase the resource. So if we can double the RPM resource at anywhere near the average grade that we already have there, that'll be a great result, and that's what we're aiming for. And then the third thing we intend to achieve at RPM is, remember, there's the RPM South zone, which is just a few hundred meters to the south of RPM North. And what we have there is another one of these intrusive dikes ripping through there. The surface sampling there, ounces per ton as well, similar to RPM North. And the footprint of those surface sampling, the anomaly, the footprint is much larger than RPM North. And so we believe that we have another one of these zones similar to RPM North at RPM South. And so we intend to drill that as well, which will also increase the resource at RPM prospect as a whole. And so that's RPM. And so you can see how exciting this is and why we need to be cashed up. So 3 diamond rigs will be mobilized to RPM.
Uns allen ist ja schon bekannt, dass Nova versucht, die Ressource zu vergrößern. Klar, wir wollen die 50 Millionen Unzen erreichen. Dafür hat er angedeutet, dass auf RPM Nord noch vergrößert werden soll und auf RPM Süd auch schon vielversprechende Proben entnommen wurden. Auch auf Corbel soll weiter gebohrt werden, nämlich mit Infill-Drillings, und eben weitere Inseln nach dem ASX-Standard Indicated zu veröffentlichen.
The other area, we'll be going back to Corbel as well this year. And at Corbel, we intend to complete and finish the remaining infill drilling at Corbel main deposit. So we drilled the south area and up to the middle saddle area, and so we intend to continue and complete the remaining infill drilling in the north part of Corbel main. So that'll bring more ounces into the indicated status, which will also then be able to feed into the next level of studies. And also very exciting, we have the next target. Finally, we'll be drilling it this year. We've been talking about it for several years, but finally this year, we'll be drilling the Cathedral target. And Cathedral, the rock chips there, 114 grams per ton, 97 grams per ton, so ounces per ton at Cathedral. And I've always felt that Cathedral, from what we see there, it's like a knob sitting in the middle of the valley, that could be actually the central core, the central feeder core for the entire massive Corbel mineralized system. And so that, we'll see if that's confirmed this year. And so we'll be drilling Corbel, and that'll be huge, because remember, we have the Corbel Central Processing Facility. If we can find higher grade resources similar to RPM, very high grade resources, so proximal to our Corbel Central Processing Facility, such a short haul just right there, that'll have a huge impact on the bottom line of our next phases of our phase 2 scoping study, and PFS also then coming on to be released in late 2023. Now with the PFS, we've already started all the test work, the next level of metallurgical and ore sorting and environmental studies. We've already started all that work. And we expect to complete that work sometime at the end or early next year, and then put it all together and compile it into our PFS, into our release of PFS study at the end of 2023. So with the to let you know kind of what's going on there with the environmental stuff. So last year we did early stage fish and wetland studies around Corbel. This year we're taking that to the next step and actually drilling hydrology groundwater monitoring wells in Korbel, and also surface monitoring stations along the creeks that are draining Korbel, and also putting in a meteorological station. Remember, a lot of these things require 12 to 18 months worth of data before you submit the permit application. Also, rock geochemistry and early tailings dam design is starting now, which will all be fed into the PFS. And then also now this year going out with that early stage wetlands and fish habitat studies at RPM now as well. And so that's all progressing very nicely. And so you can see from all of this, very big programs, one of the biggest years yet. We expect, and if the potential for Nova to be a totally different company with these drilling programs is quite likely before the end of the year. And so, when people look at share prices, you have to appreciate the broader market. The gold market is pretty tough right now, and it's not just Nova, right? But our time will come. We're playing the long game here, Jan. We're playing the long game. We're a gold company. We believe in gold, and certainly with all the geopolitical issues and the financial system, I think will be changed potentially for the better, with gold actually forming the basis of monetary systems, perhaps. And so that's kind of what we have our sights on. And to be in the game, you gotta make progress on our path to production, and that's what we're doing. That's our prime objective, and that kind of explains, I hope, those work programs, why the Snow Lake deal is so significant and so positive for Nova to fund.
Der Sharepreis von Nova ist nach Verkündung der News runtergegangen und auch dies hat viele Aktionäre beunruhigt. Wenn wir uns aber die Gesamtsituation auf dem Markt anschauen, wissen wir, gerade im Goldsektor ist es aktuell einfach schwierig. Und wie Chris schon selber sagte, das geht nicht nur Nova so. Sondern wenn wir uns den Gesamtmarkt anschauen, können wir feststellen, jeder Explorer hat aktuell seine Schwierigkeiten. Es kommt einfach nicht genug Geld in den Markt. Das kann sich aber zukünftig ändern und die Zeichen stehen eigentlich gut. Mit einer steigenden Inflation müsste das Geld doch eigentlich langsam in den Goldmarkt rutschen. Wir von axinocapital bleiben weiterhin bullish auf Gold und schreibt ihr uns doch mal gerne in die Kommentare, wie ihr das Ganze seht.
Sounds like we've got some exciting news upcoming this year, and we're looking forward to hear more of those. And just to summarize real quick, so you sold the Snow Lake stocks, you've got good money out of there. With the money, you're going to use it to drill and at RPM, at Korbel, and at many other spots, and to get more gold, as you're a gold company.
Yeah, absolutely. So the drilling results will start to flow. So we'll start at Korbel sooner. It's a lower elevation there. We'll start there in May, and then the end of May, maybe early June. As soon as possible, we'll keep an eye on the snow melt there. We'll start drilling at RPM. So I would expect kind of mid to late June for results to come out of Cathedral, and then July for RPM, the first numbers, or at least indications, geological indications from the core samples, and then we'll for that, once that infill drilling is completed, and we'll continue drilling at RPM, but once that infill drilling is completed, we'll do another resource update at RPM, and then we'll do the pit optimization, pit design, get that up to indicated, and feed that into the phase 2 scoping study later this year, and then and then beyond that, PFS and many other exciting things in the news flow coming forward. Exciting times. And trust me on this one, Jan. What that deal is not only good for cashing up Nova, but in terms of liquidity and Nova and Snow Lake being able to run now and realize its true potential, its real potential. It was a good thing for all sides. Win.
Before we started the interview, you just told me what you did earlier and what are you going to do next. You are at the project right now. You are going to prepare some drilling. Can you maybe just give us a brief outlook what your day is going to look like?
Oh, okay, so we're mobilizing the pad builders. Because we want to drill. We have several pads out there that are already built from last year. We need to clean the snow off of those and start. And we have lots of. This was another successful season of our snow road. Remember, so we brought in a lot of timbers and more camp units, and so we're expanding our camp. We're expanding our airstrip this year. We're putting in more access tracks and drill tracks. We're building drill pads to get well in advance of the drill rigs, which will be starting to the drill crews are arriving in the first week of May. And then throughout May, they'll start to come in. So organizing all of that, all the contractors, there's a lot of moving parts here, Jan. And so that's a big part of our program. Also today, we have we've sent in ore sorting and metallurgical test samples to the labs for RPM already. We'll be zooming in to look for. They're going to be doing the ore sorting test work. Will start today as well. So we'll be zooming in and watching that live because it's happening at Tomra in Australia, and the results of those we'll report once those are in. And it's all happening, Jan. It's all happening. There's a lot going on.
Sounds like you're having a great time in Alaska.
That's the most important thing. Absolutely.
Sounds good. Wow. Thank you very much for the interview. It was good talking to you. And I think we've clarified some questions from the German shareholder community. And is there anything else you would like to add in the end?
Nee, danke, dass ich ein bisschen Deutsch sprechen kann. Und ich werde meinen Wortschatz in technische Worten so, dass ich vielleicht einmal in der Zukunft alles erklären in nur Deutsch, 100% Deutsch.
Looking forward to hear this.
Ich werde es versuchen. Aber sonst ist es war sehr gut. Danke sehr für deine Zeit und ich freue mich schon aufs nächste Mal.
Also zusammengefasst erwartet Chris, dass, sofern alle Pläne aufgehen, Nova eine ganz andere Firma am Ende des Jahres sein wird. Außerdem geht Chris noch einmal auf den aktuellen Shareprice von Nova ein und betont ganz klar, dass der ganze Goldsektor aktuell unter Schwankungen und teils sinkenden Goldpreisen leiden muss. Dafür könnt ihr euch einfach mal andere Goldaktien, vor allem eben die Junior Mining Companies, anschauen. Aus meiner Sicht konnte Chris in dem gesamten Interview einmal mit Fragen aufräumen und auch einen guten Ausblick geben, wie das Geld, was von dem Snowlake-Verkauf erzielt wurde, demnächst eingesetzt werden soll. Natürlich müssen die Sachen, die Chris erzählt hat, erst einmal aufgehen. Aber ich glaube, wir konnten sehen, dass viele Pläne da sind, die Chris sowohl wirtschaftlich als auch geologisch erklären konnte. Falls ihr aber noch weitere Fragen an Chris habt, dann zögert wie gesagt nicht, sie hier unten in die Kommentare zu schreiben. Und wir freuen uns, wenn wir euch im nächsten Video wiedersehen.